as people. What I'd like to deal with this evening is how good intentions can sometimes give you the absolute worst results. That's right. The old saying that the the way to hell, the path to hell, is covered with how does that saying go? But basically, it's how we try to do good things and they wind up backfiring on us. Okay? And I'll give you an example here that's very, very vital in today's age where the internet has enabled us to be able to speak to people around the world, share ideas, and basically to break the monopoly, or at least oligopoly, of the mainstream media. And the thing is, I was reading in an article from the British press that there was a commission set up to investigate how to basically keep young people off the internet. I mean, off of pornography. Actually, I think the ultimate goal is to keep young people off the internet. But the idea was that, people under 18 shouldn't be looking at porn. Okay? And I agree. I do not think that people that are under 18 should be looking at that stuff. I think it's going to mess up their minds in way more ways than just the morality aspects, but also it's going to be very confusing. And you don't have to be a Freudian to understand how that can actually warp a person's perception of sex and sexuality, and also be able to channel those energies later to be able to develop a relationship with someone and, have families. Maybe the New World Order type people don't want us to have families, and that's the whole point of why this was all, legalized all at the same time in the Western world, pretty much. And what they proposed was an internet ID system. That's right. Before you'd be able to log on to the internet, you would have to punch in your ID. Now, there was a civil rights group that was concerned that you could actually be keeping a history of, the porn habits of users who were 18 and above, and that maybe this could be some sort of psychometric profile. Well, as if the NSA doesn't already compile such lists. I'm sure they do. Who knows what goes on there in Salt Lake City, Utah, at that big NSA center. But the thing that really concerns me the most is not that aspect, but the whole aspect of granting authority to someone to be able to regulate the internet in such a draconian way. Think about this for a moment. Just think about this. You want to have the government having the right to be able to grant you a code that you would then use to log on to the internet. Oh, nothing could go wrong with that, could it? No, not anything could go wrong with that. Come on now. Let's take a look at this. This would be an authoritarian's dream. Because ultimately, maybe at first you sell this idea. The housewives that are scared that their kids are going to look at porn. And so forth. And you tell them this will protect them. They always use kids to sell these ideas. Let's save the kids. Let's protect the kids. When ultimately there's something else behind the agenda, I believe, in most of the cases. Ban guns to save the kids, that sort of thing. Usually promoted by people who might be open to allowing third-term abortions. But that's another issue altogether. The thing is that I remember back when I was in high school. And I had this really, he was a Democrat, liberal, got elected to the state legislature as a Democrat. But he would teach from a very traditional standpoint, very traditional Democrat. I mean, he was actually even against abortion, and had a big family. And the thing is, he always taught that when it comes to the First Amendment, it's a double-edged sword. If you ban those, at the time, you ban those KKKers or you ban those communists from being able to speak, who's to say tomorrow you're not the target of someone wanting to ban you? Okay? I always try to get people to understand this because they're always looking at things from their own perspective. And they don't realize there's people that have a different perspective and that everyone has some sort of stand or whatever on something that someone else wants to say, no, that's too dangerous. Usually the people that are not strong in their convictions in the first place are the first ones to call for censorship. Okay? But censorship is not even the issue here. Because the Internet ID may start out with all these great intentions. Oh, let's get people, let's keep the kids off porn. But then what happens a few months or a few years later when someone decides, you know what, there's too much bullying on the Internet. There's these forums, there's the social media where people do some really nasty things. And so they throw these ideas out at you and say, look, here's someone who committed suicide because they were bullied. Hey, it's a horrible thing, okay? I have, in all my books, in my Freedom from Conscience series, there's always an element dealing with how awful bullying is, okay? The first book starts out with that as being a really main premise as to why the heroine eventually becomes a serial killer. One that has good morals, though. Just point that out. If you're interested, of course, look up Freedom from Conscience, Melanie's Journey. But the thing is that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? People being mean to someone on the Internet, threatening them, bullying them. But now then we get into this idea that what is your definition of Internet bullying? If I go onto a forum and I am discussing a political issue and someone says, oh, wait a minute, I feel triggered, I feel bullied, I feel like you've crossed the line. What happens if laws are imposed along with this Internet ID that says that forum host, if you own a forum page, or even Internet service providers have to report this bullying to some sort of central authority? Well, then maybe the central authority decides, you know what, and let's say they have a very strong political stand, one way or the other, and you happen to be promoting or condemning a political stand they have. Well, you might wind up restricted from the Internet. Maybe they'll set up a 3 strikes thing, First warning, oh, you better stop it, or there's going to be consequences. Second warning, hey, you're getting close. Third warning, bye-bye, no more Internet for you, and it's it. You're off the Internet. You can't discuss issues with people anymore. Now, there may be a few people out there that you kind of wish wouldn't be able to go and troll around the Internet and just stir trouble up without actually really debating issues and contributing anything. However, what happens when it gets stricter and stricter and stricter, where all of a sudden you come up with, you're coming out there and maybe you have a religious website and you're saying, hey, I believe that, marriage is between a man and a woman and traditional family's best. And someone else comes along and says, I feel like you have violated something about my stance on issues, and you get reported. Pretty soon, you have no anonymity. You have no anonymity if you have to have an Internet number. So therefore, you may be banned. And that's going to really stifle freedom of speech. I've asked audiences, and these audiences were not conservatives, okay? I've asked audiences if they have, raised their hands if they have actually moderated, if you know what I mean. They put down something and decided to change it or not share it because they were afraid of surveillance. You know what? Most people's hands go up. There's something they thought, oh yeah, this political stand I'm saying might get me on some sort of list somewhere. And that is really, really going to stifle free speech. Now, right now, the only thing you have to worry about is that you're being bugged by some intelligence agency, which you probably are. But, they have no authority, really. We don't live in a totalitarian system yet. to where people are going to knock on your door. Well, now, wait. I have heard of some cases where people have put up some posts on social media, and they have had the police knock at their door. Hey, this would be much more efficient than sending the police to your door. Just go ahead and, beep, you're gone. Gone. You know what that would do to independent media? You know, there are, I know Hillary Clinton hates, this, what she calls the alternative right, and so, alt-right is what the Democrats have been told to kind of use. I think they've been told that because I've noticed that after she gave that speech, there was a lot of people I know on social media who are Democrats, the strong Democrats, hardcore, that suddenly started using these terms, alt-right, conspiracies, and stuff like that. And so the thing is that this, there's so many thousands of people out there. There's someone maybe has a podcast that reaches 3 people, okay? And there's others that reach millions of people. But this is going to stifle all of them. And, it's all going to start off. I really do believe this. It's all going to start off kind of like, Eve in the garden. But this time it's going to be a little different. When Eve was offered the fruit, by the way, it wasn't an apple because they didn't have apples, at least that we know of. We don't know where the Garden of Eden was. Okay, it could have been in Antarctica. We don't know, and we don't know how long ago it was. But it probably wasn't an apple. Okay, and because I've eaten an apple today, and I suddenly didn't get a whole bunch of knowledge from it. The thing is that the symbol of the apple was to gain knowledge and to gain wisdom and gain the powers of the gods. Okay? That's what it was all about. This is opposite. You're being offered an apple that if you take it, there are chains waiting for you in the other hand. All right? Chains are waiting for you in the other hand if you accept this. Now, the thing is that we have a lot of these kinds of threats that are coming at us right now, but they're all sold on really nice things. For instance, I'm coming back to, this all connects, okay? This all connects. These trade bills, TTIP, TTP, there's provisions that have really nothing to do with trade, but they have things that deal with copyrights and so forth. And they actually will say things like, at least it's been interpreted this way, that it could go so far as to someone could just say, oh, well, you're using a picture that is owned by someone else, and therefore your YouTube video gets taken down. That could severely affect people. If you're independent media and you put up a YouTube video and it goes out and it becomes viral, let's say you have 100,000 views on your YouTube, but it happens to be a picture that you don't have, you didn't take it yourself, then you might get that taken down. But if you have 100,000 views, you may be getting upwards to, I don't know, you could be getting, one. I've got a couple videos that go over the 100,000 mark, and they get like hundreds of views each day. And, that can mean a lot, because you get the word out to so many more people. And if suddenly you've got a situation where social media providers are told, oh, well, you've got to be really strict on this. The new laws are that you've got to be really strict on copyright. And it's better not to even worry about, you get one complaint, dip, it goes. Okay? Your video goes. And I've heard of cases where people have had they've had some arguments over copyrighted material, and, they've had threats that their channel would be taken down. And I'm not demonizing these providers out there because they're worried that there could be things that come down on them. And the thing is that I'm just worried that if we go this far, then, again, the target will be those who don't go out and buy the rights to use photos and stuff like that. And, again, it may seem very minor, but it's very major if this is one of the means by which you reach the population. Now, on top of that, that's one reason why I always use either I use pictures that have, if I interview a author or psychologist or any other expert, and they've written a book, I generally put a picture of their book because that doesn't violate any copyright because I'm interviewing them and they are the ones who wrote the book. Okay, no problems there. Others, I take my own pictures. It may not be as exciting to see a picture of the forest or something like that, but I took that picture and therefore I have the rights to it. And I think it's going to get stricter. Again, it's going to be sold on protecting copyright. Well, there's something else about these trade bills. It says, you can't put stuff up. If I read this right, it's that you can't put things up that are designed to attack a business. That's very vague. And, you're attacking free trade or something like that. There are states in the United States that actually have laws against, going in as a worker in, let's say, a factory farm or a slaughterhouse or something, and then you film while you're inside. Okay, I had a little Skype problem there. The thing is, there's laws against going in and filming what's going on in these factory farms and then sharing it with people. That, I think, is a little draconian. I mean, Upton Sinclair that wrote the book The Jungle? And he was trying to show how these meatpacking places and other places, it was a fictional book, but he was trying to show people what goes on. And, I may not, I'm not one of these people that goes out and protest, I'm not vegan or anything like that. But I think, I grew up with, we had farm animals and stuff. We had a little bit of land. It was amateur to be sure, but you understand that it's better to let the animals, at least during that period of their life, as they're growing and maturing and they're going to be harvested, that you should treat them with a certain level of compassion and respect. And the thing is, do you really want a system in which suddenly now you can't show these pictures? I mean, they should be proud of their farming practices that they're doing. Why not share it? Because they don't want people to see it because they're like, oh my gosh, if people see this, they're going to really get angry. And these trade laws could even force, countries that have laws against this sort of thing, these factory farm conditions and the mistreatment of animals, in my opinion. And, suddenly those corporations that are involved in this could sue governments and say this is a violation of their free trade and get through with it. You see, again, here we're all like, well, hey, yeah, copyright's good. You shouldn't steal someone's intellectual property. You shouldn't be attacking you shouldn't be targeting businesses and stuff like that. But you don't realize what happens if you make these kinds of laws. And then they can't even be repealed. Okay? This would never be repealed. And so we've got to worry about this. And then when it comes to the internet, I've even heard that there could be uses of these kinds of laws saying that you can't even link to publications that are copyrighted. Do you know what that would do to blogging? Do you know what that would do to, a lot of times you link something to show that you're telling the truth to the description in your YouTube video or something or other video sources. And that could be something that you're encouraging people to violate copyright, even though actually this is how these news publications that are out there are usually making money nowadays, is traffic to their websites, which shows the advertisers that this is a popular medium for them to advertise in. But again, if your goal is to get rid of or stifle or at least in some ways hinder independent media, and that, again, will include even the people that go on and have a blog that maybe one person a week reads. Still, you're reaching people. And this is something that we should really, really be concerned with. Okay? The First Amendment, yes, it covered print media. It covered people going on the town square and saying, hey, this is going on. but that was their form of speech in those days. We now have a much greater ability to reach people and it's fantastic that you can have information going out to so many people around the world. And if your government's saying something or the oligopoly media is saying something, you can check it out for yourself. I mean, it's fantastic. Yes, there are going to be people that will abuse this, okay? There will be people that set up sites that are not really reporting true news. There are people that are going to go on there and come up with really strange conspiracy theories and so forth. I've even had people comment on my videos and say that I'm part of the Illuminati, okay? I mean, seriously, I have. It's kind of interesting. I wish I were. I've heard they had some pretty cool parties. But, I'm not. But I've had people say this. Okay, I don't mind. It's free speech. Okay, let people come on and say what they please as long as it's not actually urging physical threats against other people or, you've got some sort of like child pornography or, things like that. That shouldn't be out there. But when it comes to speech, we should err on the side of freedom. Okay? We should. And I think a lot of this stuff that you're going to hear coming out in the next few years, especially, by this time now on YouTube, even if Hillary weren't elected, if Hillary is elected, oh my gosh, it's going to be interesting for sure. Even if she's not elected, though, there's a lot of forces out there that can really, really manipulate people and try to get them to accept these things, like, again, internet IDs, to protect and to, it can be sold on so many different levels that it's so wonderful and good. But ultimately, it will be a disaster for freedom of speech. It will stifle. It will curtail. It will set up a stage in which you could even, since many people use the internet for their work, those people that use the internet for work might actually decide maybe I shouldn't comment out there. Maybe I shouldn't take stands. Because if I get kicked off the internet, then I can't do my job. And that could be everyone. Well, I think every job now has something to do with the internet. Okay? Some more than others. But, it's not just something that involves, .com people and so forth. Almost everyone needs the internet in order to today survive. Okay? It's not just for fun. It's not just, those kinds of things in which, you go on there and look at cat pictures. This is a medium that, some say, oh, it's the Wild West out there. We can't have this anymore. There needs to be regulation. No, I'd rather have the Wild West than to have 1984. Okay? Give me OK Corral, that sort of thing, before you give me some sort of dystopian Hunger Games 1984 scenario that people get curtailed and their freedoms don't exist anymore. Okay? Again, watch out for those who will say that we need to protect someone. Because when they're saying that, often it's not them that, that's not the person they're really trying to protect, or the people, or the class, or the group, okay? It's ultimately a vested interest that has something to do, almost the opposite of what is being claimed. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll come back next week for another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions.
JJ Inc. from Against the Wall, and you're listening to UCY.TV.